Good morning. I want to introduce the book Christ in Concrete. The reason why I'm recording this video is because I feel the need to give you some pointers on how to approach reading this book. Most likely for majority of you, this is going to be the most challenging text that you've ever read. It fits within the category of avant-garde or experimental writing. It is a type of literature that was very prominent in the first part of the 1900s. The masterpiece of that sort of literature is James Joyce's Ulysses. With Christ in Concrete is within this tradition of inventing new ways of expression. I hope that everyone has this very edition. There is a different one. There is a small paperback, but the numeration of the pages is different, so it will be rather difficult for you to follow. In reading this book, I want to help you with the specific technique that I think is going to be most helpful. This is going to be challenging, probably, as I said, the most challenging text you've ever read, and I don't want you to get bogged down, frustrated, and find yourself unable to go through. So a lot of emphasis on this book, and give extra credit vis-a-vis the other works or text that we are going to examine during the semester. Because I know it is challenging, but I also know that when you get to the end of it, you will be gratified by both the content, the experience, and also the fact that you learned how to read differently. The very first thing you need to know about reading this book is that you have to read it very slowly, at least at first. And you have to find the rhythm. You can't read it as if it were an article, a newspaper article. You really need to get with the internal rhythm of the writing. In order to do so, the best way, at least at first, is to read it out loud in your mind. The way to do it is to read it out loud in your mind, to go slowly, to hear what it sounds like, and again, to emphasize the rhythm. By stressing the rhythm of the sentences, you will automatically break them down into units. Your eyes will go faster, and they will know where to pause, and as you sound it in your mind, you will find the meaning will come through. Once you get the hang of it, then you can accelerate, and then you can leaf through, and there would be no problem. But at least at the beginning, this should be your approach. Starting from page 3, chapter 1, the title of the chapter is Geremio. Geremio is the main character, at least for the first part of the book. He is the foreman of a gang of Italian bricklayers who are working in a dangerous construction site. And here goes the text, and pay attention as I read and read along to the rhythm that I chose. And of course, I'm going very slowly at first, but then you can pick up, you can accelerate as you read yourself. March whistled the stinging snow against the brick walls and up the gaunt girders. Geremio, the foreman, swung his arms about and gaffed the man on. Old Nick Deline stood up from over a dust-flying brick pile, tapped the side of his nose, and sent an oyster directly to the ground. Master Geremio, the devil himself could not break his tail any harder than we hear. Burly Giulio of the walrus mustache and known as Snout Nose, let fall the chute door of the concrete hopper and sank over in the lean's direction. Maria Nina's belly and the burning night will make me of me once more a milk-mouthed stripling lad. The lean loaded his wheelbarrow and spat furiously. Son of two-legged dogs, despised of even the devil himself. Work, sure, for America Beautiful will eat you and spit your bones into the earth's hole. Work. And with that his wiry frame pitched the barrow violently over the rough floor. Snout Nose waved his hat to and fro, and with mock pathos wailed, "Sing on, guitar of mine." Short, cheery-faced Thomas, the scaffold-man, paused with hatchet in hand, and tenpenny spikes sticking out from small dice-like teeth to tell the lean as he went by, in a voice that all could hear, "Ah, father of countless chicks, the old age is a carrion." Jeremio chuckled and called to him, "Hey, little Thomas, who are you to talk? You and big-titted Cola can't even hatch an egg, whereas the lean has just to turn the doorknob of his bedroom, and old Philomena becomes a balloon." They're bantering, they are talking, they are on the job. It's really not very important who's saying what. What is generated here is the sense of the place and the atmosphere. Um, Text initially is conceived as a transliteration of Italian. This is not a translation, but more of a transliteration. These people are speaking Italian or a dialect, and in order to render the difference, the different language, Di Donato chooses to take these sentences and translate them verbatim, word by word, to give this effect, this sort of strange alienating effect, which is very, very useful and very, very effective. Let's go now to the next page, the second paragraph. We're page 4. It starts with Mike. Mike, the barrel mouth, pretended he was talking to himself and yelled out in his best English. He was always speaking English, while the rest carried on in their native Italian. "I don't know myself, but somebody who's got a bunch of kids, and the all other time stuff from somebody else." Again, here he does a double transliteration. At first, he interprets the words in Italian and renders them in English, and here he gives the onomatopoeic sound of English by a foreigner. Clearly, the dialect, the interference from Italian shows up in this particular sentence. One of the techniques that renders comprehension difficult or more difficult than normal text is the fact that Di Donato mixes together dialogue, description, and internal monologue, meaning the thoughts of the characters. But he doesn't tell you. He doesn't give you markers, such as he thought, she said, they said, whatever. You don't have these markers. Everything is given to you in a stream. So we jump from a consideration and observation by the author, description, to a personal thought, to a line of dialogue, or even to an internal dialogue that someone is having with himself or herself. I'm looking again, page 4, at the very bottom, the very last paragraph. The paragraph himself starts with pushing the job. Just above that, if you read it, it's a description of Jeremio and his thoughts, his worries about this particular construction job. And without literally any introduction or any warning, Di Donato jumps into Jeremiah's thoughts, and here they are. Pushing the job is all right. When has it been otherwise in my life? But this job frightens me. I feel the building wants to tell me something, just as one Christian to another. Or perhaps the Easter week is making of me a spirit-seeing pregnant woman. I don't like this. Mr. Murding tells me, push it up. That's all he knows. I keep telling him that the underpinning should be doubled and the old material removed from the floors, but he keeps the inspector drunk and... Hey, Ash's ass, get away from under the pilaster. Don't pull the old work. Push it away from you, or you'll have a nice present for Easter if the wall falls on you. Well, with the help of God, I'll see this job through. It's not my first, nor the, hey, Patsy number two, put more cement in that concrete. We're putting up a building, not an Easter cake. Patsy hurled his shovel to the floor and gesticulated madly. The Padrone Murding sa tell me. Too much, too much. Little bit is plenty. And you tell me I'm stingy. The rotten building can fall after I leave. 6 floors below, the contractor called. Hey, Jeremio, is your gang of Dagos dead? And then comes Jeremio's warning to his men. Jeremio cautioned the men, on your toes, boys. If he rides out slips, someone won't have big eels on Easter table. We saw very briefly here how we switched back and forth between Jeremio's internal thoughts, these worries about the building, the construction, the orders that Morden, the owner of the company, I suppose, gives him, and then he intersperses also with the contractor who tells Jeremio, are your Dago gang dead? And then Jeremio, in turn, has the obligation to urge the man to work faster. Okay, this is one of the examples of the mixing of various what is called narrative planes, and I'm going to get into that later. Something else that you may find new, that you've never seen before, is the use of a flow of writing without punctuation. This technique, as far as I know, was brought to its extreme by James Joyce. The very last 40 pages of his novel, Ulysses, what is known as Molly Bloom's monologue. It's a 40-page monologue that the wife of the main character engages in and goes on again for 40 pages without punctuation. There is an internal rhythm, but that was meant to describe the flow of thoughts. When you think, and you think rapidly, you don't put commas, colons, periods, capital letters in your thoughts. It really comes out as a river that flows. And sometimes there are two streams of thoughts that you follow simultaneously. Here is an example of that kind of technique that Di Donato applies to the description of the job. And he tends to reproduce both the complexity, the chaos, the simultaneous actions that take place as if it were a fresco, where you put all of these details together at once. If you visualize a fresco, you see a lot of things. If you were to paint a scaffold in a construction site, you would have a lot of people working at the same time. Literature does not have that ability. We have a linear succession of events that seem to render better the development across time rather than the snapshot. So this is a way of taking away the dimension of time from the description and try to render it in simultaneously. So we go to page 8. Yes, page 8. Chapter 2, second paragraph. Trowel rang through brick and slashed mortar rivets, were machine-gunned fast with angry grind. Patsy number 1, check. Patsy number 2, check. The lean 3, check. Julio 4 still bellowed back at hammered donkey engine scuffed purple. Ash S's Pietro 15 chisel points in toned stone. Thin steel whirred and wailed through wood liquid stone flowed with dull rasp through iron veins and hoist screamed through space. Rosario the Fat 24 and Giacomo Sangini check. The multitudinous voices of a civilization rose from the surrounding and melted with the effort of the job. I find this the last sentence superfluous. I think that he had already given this very, he had rendered very well the notion of the multitudinous voices of a civilization. But I think that at this point he really felt compelled to explain what he was doing. So he put in this sort of subtitle, if you want, or end of page note to tell the reader, don't be scared, this is what I'm doing. I'm rendering the multitudinous voices of a civilization. And that's the way I'm going to do it. So personally, from a purely literary standpoint, I don't think it was necessary, but it is a note from the author to the reader.